So something I do with some speaking opportunities I have is I like to set the intention for the day. And every morning I wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm like, today's going to be a good day. So what I welcome you in my intention is being able to repeat after me. Is everyone down for that? All right. So when I say today's going to be a good day, I'm asking you to do the same. So today's going to be a good day. And a little bit louder. Today's going to be a good day. All right, one final time here. Mean it. Set the intention. Today is going to be a good day. Let's go. So my name is Maria Gironas. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm so pleased to introduce Ambar Lucid. Let me read a little bit about her, though. Obviously, you heard her music, and wasn't she amazing? So I'm going to read the bios because the bios are important here. Making waves with her unique brand of psychedelic Latin pop, Ambar Lucid is a Mexican-Dominican artist whose music has allowed her to navigate her struggle with depression and, in turn, has inspired to grow a community to find light in the darkness through her art. With over 15,000 tickets sold across North America on her Estrella Part 1 and Part 2 tours, Ambar has amassed over 100 million streams across platforms. I like quick clap for 100 million streams, y'all. It's hard out here. And her creative expression has captivated artists like Omar, Apollo, and Cuco, all who have given her supporting role in their respective tours. Her single, Fantasma, has received praise by highly acclaimed Netflix show Elite, where Ambar made her debut appearance as an actor with a mystical performance of the song as the center of the episode. Now, Ambar finds herself working on the studio album for her sophomore album, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but give it up for Ambar Lucid. I'm just going to give you a quick hug because I love a hug. There it is. Thank you. Oh, are we a hot mic here?
Hello. Okay.
There it
cool.
is. I'm going to angle this chair a little bit because I want to be able to see you.
Yeah.
And also, it's a bit of an awkward distance, but just know I'm there. Well, first off, I just want to ask, I know you're coming off 3 hours of sleep and just performing and such, but how are you feeling today?
Well, other than tired, I don't know. I feel like recently I've been having a hard time, like, figuring out how I feel.
Do you feel like it's like emotionally, mentally, or do you feel like you're just having trouble like checking in with yourself? Like, you know what I mean?
I think I'm just, like, going so quickly and just doing so many things that I'm not taking the time to check in with myself.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a couple things I wanted to talk through in this combo today, but I think of the points, something I really loved about reading more about Estrella and kind of the vision and like feeling of this alter ego is like how much more clarity it feels like you have within that. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with yourself and Estrella, if that makes sense?
Well, I started working in the music industry when I was really young. I was like 17, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that I loved music and I really wanted to. I'm from Jersey. I wanted to leave Jersey, and I wanted to start a new life. And I was able to do that at very young. By 18, like, I basically had my dreams come true. And a few years after that, I realized that I had gotten the one thing that I really wanted, and I was like, okay, what now? So I kind of the pandemic happened, so I like kind of took a break from music, and then once things started, happening again, and people started doing stuff in the industry, and I started spending time in LA again, I realized that the reputation that I had created for myself was my teenage self, and that I no longer identified with that version of myself, or at least changed my mind about a lot of things, and like my artistry has evolved. So I wanted to present myself in a new light, and Estrella was my way of doing that. Estrella is like the adult Ambar that is a lot more confident, and a lot more just like sure about my artistry.
Yeah. Do you feel like, well, I think Estrella has now not only been your alter ego of this more confident version of yourself, but it's also been a bit of the center of the music and the tour and the upcoming album and such like that. Where do you feel like when you think about what conducts Straya into your creativity process, can you talk a little bit about what you're feeling like is different about your music now too?
I think I have a lot more clarity, even though I said that I'm having a hard time checking
Listen,
in.
we contain multitudes, you know?
Yeah. I just started saying what I really wanted to say and started to be more mindful with the words that I write and the actual music. Like, I just became a lot more conscious. I don't know. I feel like at 21, once I started going to therapy and I started taking meds for depression, I like became conscious and I was like, wait, hold on. What am I doing? What's going on? And I think that definitely positively impacted my music because I just was able to go into the studio with a clearer sense of what I wanted.
I think something I was reading about your bio, and so, for context, I'm 29. I feel like around your age, without sounding like I was there type of vibe, but with just a deep acknowledgement of my past, you know, I feel like when you're getting into your 20s, how many people are in their 20s in this room? How many people are in the 20s in their fake ID? I'm just kidding. But I feel like something I noticed about coming into my 20s was that you're just so goddamn self-aware about everything more than you thought. And I was like, what was my mindset when you were kind of growing up? You just kind of were just living and being constantly present, like not present, but you were kind of just moving, you know? And I think that's been kind of just lovely to hear and see within these records that you're writing, and then kind of where Estrella's coming. It's just a deeper self-awareness, just coming into adulthood, to your point. I should also ask, too, you know, I feel like I'm reaching the age where I'm tired of learning things about myself. But I feel like you're kind of entering this age where you are. Amongst that, I was recently learned that you're taking psychology classes.
Yes, I'm a psych major.
Okay. Any other psych majors in here, or is it mostly music industry folks? Any psych minors? No psych. Okay, well, the health of the music industry depends on you now. But can you tell me a little bit about why you started that?
Well, there's lots of reasons, but a few of those reasons are, I realized that a lot of people who I work with went to college and I didn't, and I was like, okay, that's not good. That's a disadvantage. And I just wanted to evolve my intellect. And I also wanted to learn how to understand and work with people better. I get manipulated a lot, or at least like I've been manipulated a lot throughout my experience in the music industry. And to be successful in the music industry, you just need to sound like you know what you're talking about. Like if you are charming, then great. And so I just wanted I wanted to do something that was initiated by me and not influenced by anybody else, because for so long, because as I mentioned, I started doing this when I was really young. So I always looked for guidance and the approval of others. And therapy played a huge role in me wanting to study psychology, because I worked with this psychologist for 3 years, and I was just fascinated by the idea that constant conversations, like weekly conversations, completely transformed my life and my self-perception. And I hold that therapist very dear in my heart, and I kind of like look at her as a role model, and I want to be able to provide what she gave me, which was a mirror to myself. And like that mirror was fogged up and I couldn't see myself. I saw just like a silhouette, and she helped me wipe that mirror clean, because I had a very chaotic and abusive childhood, so my sense of self was destroyed. And yeah, she brought that clarity into my life, and I was very inspired by that, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that so I can provide that to other people.
I love that. Shout out to your therapist. I like the analogy of the mirror that's fogged up. I think what's interesting about therapy, or at least like what I'm taking away from you that I feel resonates with myself as well, is that you don't go in necessarily trying to find yourself. It's there. It's just not very clear, you know? And I think the fogged up mirror is a good analogy for that.
Yeah. I personally think that your relationship with yourself is the most important thing. And I think that our objective to life is literally just to get to know yourself. Because if you know yourself, then that kind of bleeds into all of your other relationships. Because when you're unsure of yourself, let's say you get into a romantic relationship and you're like, I don't really know if this person loves me. That could literally just be you not loving yourself. I think a lot of the things that we experience, actually, a lot of the things that we feel are influenced by our childhood, and we're all basically just, how do I word this? The way that we view the world is a result of everything that we've experienced. And everyone has different experiences. And in order for you to be comfortable enough to take in someone else's experience, you have to validate and understand your own. Otherwise, you're kind of like in a state of confusion, because if you're confused about yourself, you're going to be confused about everything else.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of like, are you my mom? Like, not necessarily in such like a like syndicated form, but you will try to find yourself in almost anything. It's if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there type of line. And I guess like with that, something I noticed in your bio, and you've mentioned it a few times throughout interviews and such, this concept of generational trauma. For just to allow folks in, can you describe what that is? Like, and then we can kind of dive into it from there.
Yes. So
if it's easier too, you can also describe your experience with it in case you don't have like a dictionary definition. You know?
Something that I learned in class, in my group dynamics class, Psych 43, my professor was talking about happiness, and she asked us to guess how much is influenced by our genetics and how much is influenced by our circumstances. And it turned out that about 40 or 50% of our happiness is influenced by our genetics. So we carry the experiences and the emotions of our parents and our parents' parents. Like, it goes way back. We are all... Have you guys seen that TikTok of Pamela Harris where she's like, you think that, I don't know, it's something along the lines that like you exist in the context of everything that has happened before you. And so, yeah, in our blood, we literally carry how our parents felt emotions. So if our parents went through a lot of trauma, or even like far back, like that shows up within us on a daily basis. Unless you become conscious of it, I think I inherited a lot of sadness. I have to try really hard to be happy, because both my mother and my father went through, honestly, they've had a difficult life. And I feel very blessed to have the life that I have, because the things that they experienced, I don't know if I could survive that, or I don't know how I would handle it. But yeah, generational trauma is basically carrying all the challenges that our ancestors have experienced. And, you know, the world is not always a great place, and there's been a lot of messed up things that have happened throughout history. So the way that we function and the way that we think has been influenced by history. Yeah.
No, and I think as people of color, I think we carry a lot more of this history within our
Absolutely.
ancestors. was having a discussion going into this interview because I had my dad listening to your music. He's like, it slaps. And I'm like,
that.
okay, Dad. Both my parents are Bolivian immigrants and came to this country when they were 17 and 18 and met in their 20s and accidentally had me. But they're doing great with me. But I think something I've talked to them about is I think where you're kind of describing you've inherited your parents' sadness, I feel like I inherited my parents' lack of trust. Like, not of each other and not of our family, but like any outsiders. Like, I think we have a lot of, we are working as a family to try to trust and find allies to our community because I think we've built such a tight-knit one. So I guess kind of describing to the topic of community, something I think is really beautiful that you're doing is these Zoom sessions. Where I think you're creating space to like talk about this. Can you describe these sessions a little bit for the audience?
Yes. So occasionally I'll have kind of like group therapy sessions on Zoom, and I encourage my supporters to come in and have a safe space to just talk or meditate. Because I was very inspired by, or lately I've been very inspired by my group dynamic class, which I mentioned, Psych 43. And that class is basically a group therapy class, and like we learn about psychology by interacting with one another. And through that class, I learned how important it is to have a sense of community, or to have a safe space where you could just talk about anything. I like to provide these spaces because since it's on Zoom, nobody personally knows each other for the most part. So people feel a lot more comfortable discussing things that they wouldn't with people that they're close to. And yeah, I want to provide a space where people just don't hold back. And I think it's really important for us to verbalize our emotions. It's actually good for you to like say it out loud, how you feel. And not everybody knows that. And so, yeah, I want to encourage people and inspire them to do that, especially as a community.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's a couple of things to this that I think are important knowledge. I will also quickly plug the Ohio University app, the Summit app. If you have any questions, please, we're going to go around 10:40 or so. We're going to start asking questions to either Amber or I. So please plug them into the app. But I think there's a session later today talking about like building your fan community and such. And I think what's really beautiful is that you've built it in your image, you know, and I think that's kind of the essence of being a really true artist, let alone trying to like grow a community at its core. Like you have to figure out ways that you can relate to people in your own way. Otherwise it really becomes inauthentic. And I don't know if you could talk a little bit about, you know, how authentic this feels to your community, let alone to yourself.
I try to make everything that I do, even like outside of being an artist, authentic to who I am. And I feel like the best way for me to do that is to understand myself and to practice compassion. Another thing that I learned in my group dynamic class is that people sense when you're not being authentic. Also, about 80% of our communication is nonverbal. So if you're bullshitting, people will pick up on it. And learning that has really inspired me to, even when it's uncomfortable, to just voice my opinion or my thoughts and my ideas for how they truly are. Otherwise, you know, I don't like the idea of creating, because I did this when I was younger. I don't like the idea of creating an image that is not me. Yeah. That makes me really uncomfortable. That makes me more uncomfortable than dealing with, I don't know, like embarrassment for being myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a bit of like kind of growing up, becoming an adult, right? It's like accepting like you're weird in your own unique, beautiful way, you know? I guess like to that point of like kind of talking about these Zoom sessions you're holding, I want to talk about vulnerability. I think that has been I'm maybe obviously intentionally to your authenticity, but it's at the forefront of your work. And I think when in these Zoom sessions, I often, working with artists for as long as I have, I think writing music and performing it is already a crazy level of vulnerability. Because A, you're writing about honest things, and B, you're performing in front of an audience who then you are not intentionally, but are judging the music in some capacity. And I think these Zoom sessions you do offer an extra layer of vulnerability. I just wondering, how do you manage the vulnerability? How do you find space for yourself and to create space for others, you know?
I try to make space for myself first. And it is difficult sometimes because I like take in other people's emotions. I'm like, as an artist, I'm like, I am an artist of the people. Use me as like, inspiration to be yourself or to be more creative. But I think therapy has helped a lot, going to therapy consistently and having somebody reflecting me back to me and holding me accountable. I think that's what keeps me stable and grounded. I don't think I'd be able to do it without therapy, honestly. And also a lot of like practices that are grounding and reflective, like journaling, meditating. Meditating is literally a life hack. Just therapy.
How did you start going to therapy? Was it something you were kind of dodging for a bit, or was it something you were like, I really want to do this now type of thing?
I was inspired by what I would experience in my mushroom trips because I just felt this like darkness within me, and it felt like something was wrong with me. And I remember one day just like looking at myself in the mirror, feeling so sad, and I was like, I don't know how to fix this. Like, I think I need help. And I initiated therapy like on my own. Like, that's just something that I came to the conclusion that I needed, because I would wake up every day and it was like this gray cloud was over my head, and it felt like everything that I did was wrong. I felt like a creature. And yeah, I was just sick of living that way. I was like, I don't want to wake up every day and not like myself or not want to be alive. Like, that's no way to live. That's awful. So I went on the internet and I looked up therapists and kind of did a little deep dive and intuitively chose a therapist. Like, I just like saw a picture of Dr. Borenstein.
You read a therapist by their cover.
Yes. But it ended up working out.
Oh, amazing. I feel like that's a really rare case where you're able to find the first person. I feel like for me, for example, I went on a lot of first dates with therapists, and it was definitely like a couple of vibe checks. And I think that's something I would implore folks that are looking into mental health. Like, it sometimes takes a while to find the right like regime of things, whether it's therapy, whether it's medication, other alternatives and such, and grounding techniques. Like, I think for me, for example, it's so cool to hear you journaling. I'm so jealous of that. I can't find a way to make that a grounding space for me. But what I have found alternatively is making voice notes. So I'll like do a lot of voice notes to myself to kind of, okay, remember how I was feeling or thinking in this certain moment in my own words and tone, you know? But I guess like, how did you kind of come to these grounding techniques? Like, obviously through therapy that you were kind of like able to link all these things together, but how do you come to that, and what would you recommend someone looking for kind of their grounding or their therapy or their kind of regime?
Well, first of all, I think voice memos it's a great way to connect with yourself, especially because like when you talk, you're exercising your like cognitive functions. But I'm sorry, repeat the question.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So I was asking, how would you recommend someone kind of embark on the journey of like finding their grounding and or mental health routine?
Start with something easy. You don't have to like burden yourself with like a task that feels overwhelming. Also, do whatever feels comfortable for you. Like, there are no rules. The whole point is to make yourself feel stable and grounded. So be kind to yourself, even if it's just like, I don't know, this is just an example. Let's say I want to read more because I want to like relax or like, you know, have a moment of like me not being on my phone and just like reading something and reflecting on what I'm reading. I would give myself like 5 minutes a day or like meditating for 5 minutes, even just 1 minute. And then you kind of build on that. Yeah, you don't have to do anything crazy. Just kind of start. It's important that you show up for yourself and you don't lose anything from showing up for yourself. If anything, like it evolves your quality of life. Like if you actively choose to do things that are good for you. So I mentioned before that about 40% of our happiness is influenced by our genetics. The other highest percentage, I forgot exactly how much it was, is our intentional actions. So we have a lot of power over our happiness based on the choices that we make. So your choices matter. Everything that you do and everything that you say matters. So, you know, if you're gonna be living life doing all of these different things that affect you, and turn you into the person that you are, you know, it's important to consider doing as many things as you can that are good for you and help you feel happier and less, you know, we live in a very overwhelming world. You know, we have social media, people are not as connected. And so we have to put a little bit more effort. I know I said before, like, try not to be hard on yourself, but I think it's really important for people to practice, you know, like, just like self-care. Because if not, I mean, life just feels like too much. Yeah. And life is beautiful. Life can be so beautiful. Having interactions with other people, that's beautiful. Having, you know, a sense of community, friends, that's what life is all about. And if you are lost and confused and depriving yourself from those things, there's going to be no color to life. So yeah, you bring the color into your life, and other people do as well, but it starts here.
Let's go. Come on. This is the stuff you should be hearing. I think often's the case with like, I think the music industry doesn't do enough to talk about how self-love and radical self-love at that. I also think this industry can be a bit unforgiving, but we choose it. And obviously, don't mean to speak for yourself, but just hearing like, because we love it. We love doing this. I think my passion's more on the business side, whereas yours is more creative. And I imagine entrepreneurship in general as you continue with your career. You know, what advice would you give, you know, I guess let me take a quick poll here. Any young artists in this room? All right. What would you advice give for a young artist looking to kind of get into this industry and kind of get to where you're at right now?
I would say try to become as educated as possible. You know, become familiar with the industry that you're getting yourself into, because I was kind of like thrown into it by choice. And I was like a scared little puppy, had no idea what was going on, and just kind of like latched onto whoever was helping me. Unfortunately, if you're trying to make it into the industry, you're going to be treated like a product. It's a harsh truth to accept. So that's why I encourage people to become more educated so that they are familiar with, you know, the things that they're getting themselves into or how things work. Because, you know, like I said before, I get manipulated a lot, or I've gotten manipulated a lot to kind of like do things in a way that someone else encourages me to. So I would say become as educated as you can. Never stop learning, especially about the industry. But most importantly, yourself. You're going to have to fight a lot. Because you're going to have, actually, let me word it like this. Don't allow someone to silence your artistry. That is a mistake that I made. If you're gonna take anything from this, like to the artists, your artistry is what makes you unique. That's what's gonna gravitate people towards you. If you change yourself to fit in, then you lose what's special about you. And like, people are gravitated towards artists that are real, artists that share and create art from their soul. People feel that. There's like this, exchange of energy. And when you silence yourself, it's like you're turning down the abundance that you can experience as an artist. I think, protecting your artistry is really, really important, because there's going to be so many people telling you, no, you shouldn't do this. Actually, what if you did this way? Or what if you change this? Or what if you do this? Or what if you do that? And I did that for so long. I lost my spark, and I saw the response that I got from my supporters, and just don't take what people say with a grain of salt.
I have no comments. I guess kind of going before we get into questions, and once again, if you go into the Q&A side of the app, I'm going to start asking questions to Ambar from there, so feel free to do so. Before we go into questions, I'd love to know what's coming up for you. You just kind of finished the Estrella Part 2 tour. Working on the album as we speak. What's kind of on the horizon for this year for yourself?
Well, I'm working on a bunch of music, and this project, I think I might be releasing an EP before the Estrella album. I don't know. My whole thing always changes as I write more music and as time passes. But I'm releasing a single in May called Truth Is So Loud. And I think that's what I have coming up.
Can you talk a little bit about the song, anything, what it's about, where it's inspired from?
Yes, so it's inspired by the version of myself about 2 years ago. I was going through a really messy breakup, and I wrote the song inspired by the feeling of coming to terms with the fact that that relationship wasn't going to work anymore, and that was a very painful truth. And I realized that there are a lot of really painful truths to life, and it was my way of expressing being open to experiencing truth or hearing truth, even though it makes me uncomfortable or if it makes me sad. The reason why it's called Truth Is Always So Loud, even if you're lying to yourself, the reality of things, it's there. Even if you close your eyes, it's never gonna go away. That song was just me being damn, this relationship is so bad for me.
Do you find when you're writing music, you're writing knowing what it's about, or do you find about what it's about after?
I think it depends who I work with. And also what I'm experiencing. If I'm going through something emotionally and I'm very emotionally charged, it's kind of like a diary entry. But sometimes, I'll work with a co-writer, and we'll be very intentional about the song that we write. We'll be okay, let's make up a story. What are we saying? Is the message clear? I don't know. I like to change it up.
Yeah, love that. We're going to dive into questions from the audience. And one question from Jeremy White, Buenos dias. He wrote it. I'm not just saying that.
Buenos dias.
Question for Ambar. Aside from your Zoom sessions, what would you say is the most significant way you engage with the community of your supporters you've cultivated?
Probably on social media. I am constantly answering DMs. There's some of my supporters that I talk to on a daily basis. But I'm not engaged enough with comments, but with my DMs, I don't know, if I see some, I try to respond to as many messages as I can.
Do you feel like is there a certain platform you navigate towards, or kind of even recommend one to artists or anything like that?
I don't know. I feel like different like platforms have different energy. Like on TikTok, I feel a lot more comfortable just like being silly. And I mean, I don't know. I would say just do whatever feels right, whatever works for you. Instagram is like my like big boy account where like I have to like not be serious, but be mindful of what I post.
Yeah, I think it's like a bit like a modern website. You know, I could almost, I trust an artist that doesn't have a website. I don't know if I trust one without an Instagram account. At the bare minimum of things, you know. I guess like as far as like diving into your just kind of going back to the earlier convo on these Zoom sessions, your community. If anyone in the audience is interested in joining those Zoom sessions, how often do you do them? Like how open is it?
Well, I post about it. I wanted to do it every week, but I think bi-weekly might be better for me. I'm aiming to do it every Monday, but honestly, it'll probably change. I would say if you're interested, keep up with my Instagram stories because I post them. I'll post a Discord link today for anybody that's interested. I'll probably do one next Monday.
Okay, perfect. You heard it here, everyone. Next questions. Nicholas Romano, who are your inspirations, musically or intellectually?
Musically, Rosalia, I love her so much. She's my queen. She's the blueprint to my career. She's like, you know, like when you love an artist so much, they almost like make you feel closer to God. I don't know if that makes sense. That's how I feel about Rosalia. Love Billie Eilish, Alice Phoebe Lou, Mon Laferte, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd has been a huge influence in my aesthetic and music. And then intellectually, Carl Jung. And honestly, people in my life and also my ex-boyfriend, I learned a lot from him. Actually, he inspired me to go to school. Not that he encouraged it, or not that he like said that I should. It's just like he was in school when we were together, and I was like, that seems maybe like something I would want to do. I don't know. I try to learn as much as I can from people. I feel like people are books. You can learn from everyone's experience.
Shout out to your exes, everyone. From Elliot Brown, what was the scariest thing with taking your first steps into the music industry with how toxic it can be at times?
Not knowing who to trust and not knowing who's like being real.
How did you learn to distinguish from the two? If and obviously, I think that's still a wild learning, living learning process, though.
I think my previous therapist kind of like almost like shook me awake because I was very naive for a long time. And I don't know, just kind of like accepting the harsh truth that humans are not always the nicest and they can be manipulative and they will take advantage of you if they think that they can get away with it. That's just part of our human nature. Yeah, I think just having more trust in my choices and my feelings and my perception of things, validating myself. I think having if you have a clear sense of how you feel and how somebody makes you feel or how you react to things, and pay attention to how people react to you. Basically, just being observant and you know, take into consideration the way that people treat you and the way that they act around you. Just paying more attention and being more mindful of the relationships and the quality of the relationships that I have. But therapy helped me exercise that.
Yeah. I think to your earlier point, I think education is paramount to feeling like just being able to walk in a room sometimes and talk business and such. But I also think feelings override all of that. Like if you have a bad feeling, if you have a good feeling, like it could be like logic can be as simple as a quiet voice, you know, doesn't need to be a loud bang.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Do you feel, I guess like to also plus one on that too, do you have like folks in the industry that, you know, like if someone in this room, I'm sure there's a couple young executives here too, that are looking to like kind of admire or follow anyone that you recommend, like any teams or companies that you've really just been like, I really loved working with them type of thing?
Ooh. That's a good question. Sorry, I'm like thinking about it. My publicist is really cool. Her company is called Guerrera PR, I think.
Yeah, Lorena, right?
Medina, yeah.
Yeah.
Loren. She's cool.
Yeah, she's the best. I'd also say Daniela Sala, who's here.
Oh, hell yeah. Daniela, Wide-Eyed Entertainment.
Indeed. And we have a question from Charlotte Brantley. Who gave you, or how did you cultivate the courage to take yourself and your life to a new place, leaving where you grew up at such a young age?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
What gave you, or how did you cultivate the courage to take yourself and your life to a new place, leaving where you grew up at such a young age?
Intuition. I don't know. I feel like music was my destiny just because of how easily it happened. Because I come from a background where, I didn't have connections to the music industry. It literally just like fell on my lap. But yeah, when I was 11 years old, I've been able to predict my whole life because I like live my whole life in my head over and over again. It's like this thing that I'm able to do. And at 11 years old, I was obsessively like on YouTube watching interviews, music videos, and I just had such a strong feeling in my stomach. I was like, I'm gonna be an artist. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And I would repeat that out loud all the time, and I would tell anyone. Like when I was a kid, I'd literally be like, "Hi, my name is Amber. I'm gonna be an artist one day." And I just kind of trusted that feeling, no matter what twists and turns life took, and no matter how many people told me that I was crazy. Many people told me that I was crazy, especially like right before I moved to LA. But yeah, there's some things that you just can't explain that you just know.
I love that. I think we'll get to these last two questions. But Lucas Whitley, what are some ways let me read. What are some ways you multitask throughout the industry? How do you find space to differentiate your personal life from your musical career?
My musical career does not fulfill me at all, other than like playing music and connecting with people. But outside of that, I mean, that's why a reason why I decided to study psychology is because I realized that my everyday life as an artist, it just wasn't making me happy. Just only having that as my main focus in life. Like I feel like you have to have multiple things that inspire you and make you happy, or like multiple things that you're passionate about. Sorry, I blanked out.
You're talking about like, I think what I'm hearing from you, Madam Gandhi, I don't know if you're familiar, like Kieran, who used to be a drummer for MIA, described it as when she would come off of tour, she'd have tour depression. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what tour depression is, it's kind of like you're post-tour and you're at home and you're just like, I want to be on the road again, right? And the way she described it was like, you have to have even pots of joy. Mm-hmm. If you had one big pot of joy and it's just music and there's nothing going on in that pot, or it's not full, you will not have joy, but you need to have multiple pots of it. Does that sound kind of
Yes.
resonates with what you're saying?
Absolutely. I can't make music. Well, the act of like playing music and writing, that's totally different. I'm not talking about that because that's so healing for me and I love that. But yeah, I decided to not make evolving in the music industry as an artist my main focus, because like I did see how I needed other things in my life to keep me going, because like the industry is not a fun place. So I found myself that I just became so obsessed for years. It was like a survival mechanism for me. I would just only think about, okay, how am I going to evolve as an artist? And then I stopped myself because I was burning myself out. And also things take time, and I didn't want to just sit around and wait. Yeah, I was like, I realized that I had a lot of free time because the way that I guess my workflow works is, I don't know, like I'll be on tour for like a month and it's like nonstop. Like that Lady Gaga video where she's like bus, club, another bus, another, like that's literally what it's like to be on tour. And then, you know, sometimes other random opportunities, like it's very spontaneous being an artist. So there are times where like nothing is happening or like I'm not doing anything or like I'm too tired to do anything. And I remember before I decided to study psychology, I was like, what am I doing with my life? I was like, yeah, I'm an artist, but I want to leave like a legacy, like a legacy that's inspiring and just kind of like sitting here waiting for things to happen and like existing on other people's terms and timing. I was like, have you guys seen that TikTok where, sorry, I keep saying so many TikTok references, but there's this TikTok that was like, hey, Latino, go to school. Like, that's what it felt like the universe was saying to me when I was like, what am I doing with my life?
I know exactly the TikTok. 29 years old. Okay. Last question from KK Latimer. What's the creative process when you start creating music? Like, what helps you get into the groove of things?
Honestly, anything. I like to, spiritually, I'm an artist 24/7. Everything that I experience can be inspo, conversations, a movie. Movies actually inspire me a lot. People, the way that a bird is flying, the sky, anything. I don't know, it's just kind of like, I try not to rely on like the spark of inspiration because I like to push myself, but sometimes you just know when you got to write something down. I would suggest write stuff down when you think of it. I like to do that and then kind of bring that into my sessions because like sometimes I experience like creative blocks. But I'll be like, shout out my past self because like I wrote down ideas and then I use those ideas sometimes later on. Or sometimes it's spontaneous. I don't know. I don't really have a structured creative process. I just kind of try to stay as open as I can to stimuli. Because you never know when something's gonna like spark that project in you. I don't know.
I just want to end it because so earlier I asked you, what advice you have for artists in this room. And something you kind of alluded to, and also in general, like, the relationship between the toxicity in music and like the executive side. So my final question for you, for the group here, for the young executives in this room, how can they get into the industry and do better for artists? Like, what is like any advice you have on like what you wish, the kind of executive you were kind of around at the time when you were just getting into this game, or even now for that matter?
I mean, I feel like this applies to anyone, but just remember that artists are people and they're very sensitive and we're exploited. We choose to be exploited. But a lot of artists are troubled, highly sensitive, and you don't have to be an artist to be those things, but never forget the humanity of artists because they're not products. They can make you money, but they're people. They feel pain, they feel emotions, they they go through a lot. And it's also very overwhelming. I've realized that most people don't understand, like if you're not an artist, what it feels like to like constantly be interacting with people, especially when I'm on tour. Like it's like back to back to back to back person. Like sometimes like 100 people in one night, plus like my team and then my friends. It's exhausting. So I would say, if an artist is being difficult, ask them why instead of judging them.
The bar is low, but it is a good bar to have. Well, Ambar, thank you so much for this time and appreciate everyone listening today. Thank you.
Thank you.